Well, here we are in Shitscoover again there, folks. Welcome to the shit show. Damn it. Happy 420, by the way. Gotta refill this thing. Adjust the wick again. Whatever. I give up. Not as fancy, not as cool. But it works. It works to light shit on fire. These bloody butane torches, man, do they ever work in the camping, outdoorsy lifestyle. Way better than a Bic, folks. Get yourself a couple of these jet lighters, and they're refillable too. Cheap, convenient, works great. Good bonus. Yeah, I should do a but you see, there's so many of these prepping channels that they do all the stuff and all the everyday carry kit and all these things, and then there's some of them, the backwoods ones, where they actually show you the practical skills of how to set up a tent, or what everybody always says you need an axe or a hatchet, short-handled axe. And they might show you how to build, like, you know, this kind of fire, or this kind of camp setup, or this kind of lean-to, or something like that. But it's like a one-off, and it's like a useful skill if you was stranded out in the forest, or if you was heading out into the bush to go camping for weeks on end, that you can't carry enough provisions with you. You know what I mean? This is kind of like extreme, and whereas the urban, suburban, guerrilla survivalist is a bit different. And also, you need batteries so that you can live the cyberpunk lifestyle, and a place to charge the batteries. The lamp posts, you can open up the bottom, you know, when the power is not on in the middle of the day. So it's got to be before they turn the power on. It doesn't actually have to be, because if you're only cutting one wire at a time, there's a way to do that too, folks. Anywho, you just unplug them, attach them with Moretz, have a little power cord, and then at nighttime when the city lights come on, you can recharge your batteries and get power banks. I'll show you some of the, they put locks on them. Instead of just like a security screw, lots of the places around here, it's a security screw. So you gotta have some weird clover leaf type, and then you get 2 pins, and I can still open some of them. Certain ones, you can still find a way to open them. The clover leaf ones, but these other ones that they have nowadays, it takes a key, and it unlocks a clasp. And obviously it's a master key, but it's like a master lock, you know, like a decent lock company with the security lock, and then that opens so that you can take the plate off for the damn city lights. So the urban, suburban, the governments are at war with the people, and especially the poor, the homeless living in the city, folks. Yeah, I'd like to do a cooking show where you could cook gourmet food. See, I got my campfire coffee here. This is pretty simple, pretty practical, but really simple. And, you know, but you could. It's just that you'd need multiple stoves, or multiple burners, or, you know, those Coleman camp stoves that has the 2 burners, but those are big and hard to trounce around with. Oh, fuck. Ugh. Anyways, kind of interesting to think of. It's yet another one of those things that if you just had a helper, or a cohort, or somebody to hold the camera, and it's just, you know, 2-3 people, and we could do fabulous stuff. But like I said, the city, they go after the people, and the high taxes, and the high rates of rent, and the bad jobs with the low incomes, and the always having to live on more and more credit that goes on here in BC, everybody out there, they think they're under attack. There's people that I've met that have been fleeing war zones in Ukraine that they act the same way. Not the same way, but also I've noticed that people, when they just show up here and they've only been here for a few weeks or months, they're in a state of shock. Everybody, it's not the same as like a turista. I've seen the turistas with the different language. I've been a turista myself in Spanish speaking places, and there is a bit of like, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to go out here on the beach and hang out on my own because everybody talks in this weird language and I don't understand it. And sometimes I think and sometimes I know they're definitely making fun of the gringo, right? But there's this whole, it's like, that's what they call a culture shock, I guess. It's like a war zone. It's like a PTSD. People are going to work, or they're going to schooling, and I'm talking even within the first few years of showing up on the refugee circuit, and they've got a place to live, and they've got, for anytime they see somebody who speaks the old language, they just, oh, hey, even if when they were in the old country, they're on two ends of the country, and they would never meet, they would never associate or affiliate with a person who's, you know, in a different demographic. Oh, hey, and they just keep yapping, and you're in line at the supermarket or the bank. Especially if it's like a smaller dialect or a smaller region in the country, and they are from the same region and they speak the same dialect, and it's not like, you know, but anyone from the old country, and they're in a state of shock. They're just wandering around. You see them like dazed off. They don't track on conversations when that same person would be interested in you the previous day when you were talking to them. It's you can tell the PTSD type effects. But here, like I make the analogy to, in Syria, they have to drop bombs to get people on the run. In Vancouver, to get people on the run, all they do is set up a security fence, stand in place fence, and a real estate sign, a development sign. And they can get people on the run. They can get people scared, running for the hills. They don't even need to drop the bombs here. There's a war on the citizens by the foreigners, by the Laurentian elite, the politicians off there in Ottawa, the money bags, market players, the corporate magnates, that they don't give a damn about you. In fact, they like it when you suffer, because that means that their portfolio is going up, or so they say. Well, we're finding out, many years later, that wasn't actually the case, and they were lying about the numbers on the books. It was, even as far back as like a few years after the Olympics, 2015, around then, when they couldn't even do the same condo projects as they were, and then that is what they're calling the height. Out west here in BC, there was the Christy Clark era, and they got rid of her, and that was around that same time too, just before Trudeau got in. Who'd they replace her with? There was a fucking goof monkey for a while, but it was a short time, and then we got the NDP in like a year and a half later, and all of these big players in the real estate industry, they just pulled their capital out kind of like in protest, and then the government, the feds, started flooding in with the affordable housing kind of gimmicks. Here's $50 million, go build housing for junkies so that we can keep people on junk. And that's also right when the fentanyl started too. It was ramping up. they had the Afghanistan, and all the heroin was just flooding the market. After about 4 or 5 years of Canada being in Afghanistan, around 2008, 9, or 10, the whole city was just flooded with, and the heroin got cheaper. And I don't know what the fuck. The same as Vietnam, the soldiers bringing it in. Then the housing prices was still going up. Christy Clark and the cabal of, what do they call it, Social Credit Party, that's in antiquity. There's the local cabal of big money bags, magnates, that they support what they call the free market party, but it's not. It's the oligarchy party. It's the controlled marketplace, in bed with each other, hands in each other's back pockets. Aquilini family, Pattison, but they're even some of the better ones. But anyways, it's those types, and they had, I don't know, a good run of things. Then they just decided to, I don't know, take some money out, keep investing in the property market, but take some of that money and go overseas and allow the foreigners to invest. Then they put the taxes on the foreign investing, so the government was milking that too. But this is what I'm saying, that the condo developments have been in free fall since like 23, 24, last just 2, 3, 4, 5 years. That's what you've recognized. But from 2022, 2023 to 2020, there was a different market. They were still pumping, but they weren't able to make bank on the new projects like they were. It was already starting to stagnate and pander out. It was on the one side of the market, the luxury markets, that had already fallen out. The bottom had already fallen out of there since like 2005, actually, in fact, more aptly. But in between 2015 and 2020, they were already having condos that they wouldn't sell their 70% and they'd give the money back. But at this time, so condos would be making starts in Surrey, and they were charging higher and higher rates to be out the valley and out the Fraser Valley. But the downtown, the luxury, the high-rise condos that they had started to allow to go into these 50, 60 floors, which is never allowed in Vancouver up to that point. There's a Bruno Wall that he wanted to, right across the street from that hospital, the St. Paul's Hospital, the Wall Business Center, the Sheridan Wall. It's hotels, it's condos, it's business, office towers, but it's a combination of some or all of the three in each different building, and all on one site. Was it 3 towers? He wanted to build up to 60 floors back in the 90s. The city wouldn't let him. Now around this time, in that 2010, 2015, the Shangri-La is going through, and they're allowing people to build up to 60 floors. But they're allowing this to be sold out to the foreigners, to be designed by the foreign architect firms for getting the layout and the design of what the Chinese market, the investor Chinese market wants. So this is what I mean, that there's like a different market in the condos in Vancouver than what they're telling you when they just take the prices and they just go all the condo prices in Vancouver, and then they compare that to Ontario, and then they tell you about that from the real estate channel that the guy sits in his fucking basement and tells you about numbers. Useful, informative, but not the real deal of what went on back at these times, because the investment, they weren't putting in all these new starts. And so what would happen was, in downtown Vancouver, they could get new starts for luxury condos if the investors were buying out whole floors, and it was corporate purchases of these, $2 million condos, these I don't know. Anyways, luxury condos. But nevertheless, those would get starts. The stuff that was more of the mid-range, already they had priced themselves out of the middle class, the working class, the well-to-do, the white-collar, you know, I don't know, educated, high-paying professional class. They'd already priced themselves out there. So the older condos would sell to those types, the high income earners, or as I said before in other videos, the drug dealers, because they didn't ask any questions. If you could just pay that amount of rent, back then, $3,000, $3,400 for a condo downtown, not unheard. That would be, I don't know, standard, or middle of the road. Anyways, so they could build these luxury condos for investors and have people buying into them because the market was going up back then, and it still went up. And this was what they were pushing with the Liberal Party when they were in the last time before they became defunct. And there was lots of market for that. And then, as I said, maybe around 2015, it was right when the next summer after, like, that into that summer, because Christy Clark was out in the middle of the winter, the early spring, I think, and it was literally like, so there wasn't as many new starts on all these other condo projects, and it was already happening. They weren't telling you about that because there was new starts for those kind of mid-range condos in Surrey, in Richmond. Actually, Richmond gets the luxury market too, but you see, there was more of those happening in other places that were further away from downtown and lower prices to buy in, and then it was still a luxury condo. So they had, again, in this 2018 era, where they say that house prices that was the real high, not 2023, because that was the real high in relation to the price of gold or other hard assets. And ever since then, even though they're making more numbers, it's still going down because it's just going up in nominal terms, right? So we already had, now there's no new starts, is what I'm saying. There's like one on the books or one, but they have all these development signs all over. And because of the credit crunch, there was no work happening until literally in the last like 3 weeks. It wasn't until around the beginning of this month that I actually seen like work pick up at the end of summer. See, none of this makes any sense, folks. But the big players, the people who don't, the salespeople who work for the developer, or most of those guys are total rubes too, but I'm saying that work for the parent corporation, work for to sell it to the investors, to sell it to the banks, to get the credit. They already knew, but they don't have their videos. Maybe the people who get interviewed on these real estate channels, like the Steve Skoretsky kind of thing. But the condo market has already been defunct for more than a decade in British Columbia. What they've been building, it's all on credit, it's all on inflated projections, and the populations hit a zero growth. We know it's in decline, and we know it's in decline a lot faster than they'll ever admit, because they're scared and they're shitting their pants, because the people who knew what I was talking about, or the people in the know that have pulled their money back out, going as far back as more than a decade ago, from that kind of investments in the Vancouver market, they knew because of the amounts of money and what's on the books, and they could see with the demographics. So the shift from the defunct condo market, they were still pumping it. They still got 10 more years of sputtering out of the ones that already hit empty in Vancouver. And the people in that middle, the salespeople, the not the architect firms, that those jobs and stuff, those were all on credit for those 5-year bonds that they were borrowing off the bank. 2015 to 2020, they could still make good on a lot of those bonds, and they kept pumping the market. 2020 to 2025, they can't do that again. So this is why the push is to still get people to sink money and pension funds and bullshit investments from these mutual funds into the rental market. And they're already overbuilt all of this shit. There's like empty luxury condos in Vancouver. Like, you couldn't even imagine to enumerate the total. It would, as soon as you got to like 40,280 fucking 3, the guy next door would go, oh hey, here's another empty one. Like, it's just, you couldn't even, you cannot, this is what my thesis is too, throw a goddamn rock in this town without breaking the window of a fucking empty condo. This is my next plan. Well, it's been my next plan for the whole fucking summer. But anyways, the point is, there's no new starts at all. And that's what it took to get people to, when they were announcing that they're not doing any of the starts for this mid-range shit in Vancouver 10, 15 years ago, it was only luxury condos. Oh, you want starts for, you know, mid-range or anything less than the luxury condo? You got it was still happening, and people would still put their money down on the imaginary shoebox in the sky. But that's because it was at cheaper amounts, and they could qualify on credit to actually buy in. The other luxury stuff, they couldn't qualify on credit, and they were fudging the numbers even at that too, folks. Ugh. So now we literally have tens and tens of thousands of empty condos. And what is their solution in BC at the local city council and with the feds? Is to build more rental housing that's going to get built at higher rates. So then the government can subsidize the rent for everybody. That way they get to pick winners and losers. Canada is, after 10 years of fucking Trudeau, has become so fucking communist. The comparison to North Korea isn't even fucking doing it. Because in North Korea, you at least got, well, I don't know. I hear that they fucking beat you if you take the blackberries off the bushes. We got blackberries out here. You gotta eat off the fucking land. I guess you can still run off into the fucking forest and eat the fucking donkey shit in North Korea. That's basically what we've got ourselves situated with here. There's still some winners out there working for the government or working for the other team guys, and they're the ones who they show you that have any amount of success, or that affluence is based on that they've been able to accumulate or accrue more of the credit than you did because you fucked up on your credit before they did. And that's it. There's just straight fucking heap of credit and debt. Ain't nobody got any affluence but the people who are holding back and holding these properties off the market in the way of empty lots, the land sharks. They're not even the speculators like you think of as what they tell you about the people who would be investing in these student shoebox condos, because there was always a rental market. There never was a rental market, folks. They just moved people around the city and got them on the run in search of cheaper places. So they moved to the older places, they moved further out away from town. Same number of people, same bullshit, different pile. I'm gonna let you go. That is, I'm gonna have to upload this video because that's actually a somewhat concise other side of the coin that they don't tell you about. They do tell you, but the correlation, and it's like some fucking moose on the loose fucking son of a bitch. We gotta get to work out the chart with the fucking bank rates and the fucking bullshit that was going on. As soon as the bank rates go down, the price goes up. the banks make more interest over more time. You could qualify easier for the higher amount because the interest rates have come down, so they said, when you had to buy into whatever house at the higher rates. So they knew what they were doing all along. You just didn't know it because you just showed up and said, well, a lot of people are stupid too. A lot of people are stupid, and it's that whole willful blindness to what's going on around them, and they just listen and cluck like chickens and parrot what they hear. Oh, housing crisis, housing crisis. Yeah, we got a housing crisis. We don't have enough people, and we have too many fucking houses, and they're all empty in Vancouver. Please, if you're some way patriotic or conservative, move back here. Everybody's just fucking gone. I'm left alone with my ghosts in the forest. Anyways, I'm gonna fuck off now. So you folks have a nice fuck off yourselves.